WebSockets game. Just before I start quickly, I'm Rob Hawks, you can't really see it at all. That's my Twitter, it's on the other thing. That's my blog. If you want to find anything else about me, it's rawkets.com, and I'll put all the slides on here afterwards if you've missed anything. So, I'm going to talk about Rawkets, and basically, what is Rawkets? Well, Rawkets is a massively multiplayer online space shooter game. So, in short, really, it's a Mosca. Which means it's massive. And that's in the sense of the environment that you play in, and also the amount of players that are inside of it. It's also a simple game. I've built it to look simple, quite retro. It's using geometric shapes and stuff like that. And it's also simple to play. And it's experimental. The reasons behind making it are just for experimenting, really, and to try out these new technologies and see what can be done with them. And it's also a social game. I'm trying to test things with integration with like Twitter and user interaction within the game to see what could be done differently to other HTML5 games. So just before I start talking about the rest of it, I just want to sort of show a little demo of what it is. It's just a video. It is live on rawkets.com. So basically all you can do now really is just fly around in geometric shapes, you log in with your Twitter, and you just shoot people. And you rack up kills and just try and get more kills than the other person. This has only been sort of in development for like, what, 2 months now? Not even that, and it's just me developing it as a university project. So it's really quite basic at the moment, but the sort of vision for it is to be much, much bigger than that, and sort of to act as a framework for other people to build onto, like Christian was saying, to add things onto and look at my source code and implement their own features. So why should I make it? Well, for the open web. I'm constantly sort of amazed by what can be done with these open web technologies, and I'm really interested in stuff like JavaScript and HTML5 canvas, and WebSockets in particular, and these sort of are really interesting things that I wanted to see what could be done with them. And this sort of led into my passion for this sort of technology and sort of the desire to learn these things, which is the next thing. I really wanted to learn these things, and this is why I created the game. But really, sort of, why not create it? It's just cool technology, why not? So the technology behind it is really quite basic. It's using a few core principles. On the client side, it's using HTML5 canvas for the graphics, and it's also using WebSockets for the communication between the players and the server, so that's just sending like position data and stuff like that. And on the server, to pick up that data, it's using another JavaScript library called node.js, which is really quite powerful, it's really interesting. And for using WebSockets, I can sort of stream data up and down. I'm also storing data on the server using an open database system called MongoDB, which is also quite interesting. But there's been some performance issues. Overall, it's been quite good. You can really do quite a lot of stuff with it. You can have lots of players in the game. But getting to this point has sort of I've noticed a lot of performance issues with particular aspects, not always related to open web technologies. The main issues have been with network performance, so the communication between the player and the server, internet connection speeds and stuff like that. Really, this is kind of down to the WebSockets and the limitations on it at the moment. It only accepts text-based messages at the moment, so you have to write in quite a verbose way, and you can't compress things as much as you would like to. So you're going to be sending quite a lot of data, and if you're, for example, in Rawkets, you're sending stuff at every 30 milliseconds, so it's very fast and a lot of data. So you're really racking up bandwidth very quickly. So looking into how to improve on these issues is quite important. And one of the ways to do this was to build a protocol within the game for communication. So you basically set out a set of rules that said, this is what a message should look like. I'm going to compress it using something called Bison, which is a binary version of the JavaScript JSON. And that just allowed me to sort of cut down the messages, keep them as strings, but keep them quite short. So the data is still sent as plain text, but it's just really as compressed as possible. And the second way is by limiting the rate data is sent. At first I was sending data based on on the key down event, on the JavaScript key down event, and this is really, really quick. It's faster than 30 milliseconds. which is the frame rate of the game. So data was getting sent way too much, just unnecessarily too much. So what I did is I limited that to just 30 milliseconds, and that cuts down completely on the amount of data being sent back and forth and allows you to do more of the game. But aside from these two issues, there's sort of an overriding issue to do with the communication between the players and the server, which really is an important thing to look into if you're looking to create a massively, or even just a multiplayer game with open web technologies, or just in general. So I mean, just for a quick example, if you have one player in Rawkets at the moment, for example, they could be sending one message in to the server and they get one message back, just updating their position and stuff like that, which is fine. But if you move that to 2 players, so it's kind of multiplayer, but it's not really that big, you have 2 messages coming into the server, 1 from each player, and 4 going out, so 2 back for each player. Still not really massively multiplayer, so if you move on, 4 players, 4 messages coming in, 1 for each player, 16 out, 4 for each player. So as you can see, it's sort of the square of the amount of players. And I mean, if you go up even further, 30 players, and this is every 30 milliseconds, remember, so this is a lot of data. So you've got 30 messages coming in and 900 messages going out every 30 milliseconds. And if you go even stupid and make it massively multiplayer, 100 people, 100 messages coming in every 30 milliseconds, and 10,000 going out. That's for one piece of data. That's, if you included, say, bullet updates in the game and stuff, you'd have a ridiculous amount, 20,000, 30,000. And this is stupid, and this really tripped me up in the game, and it's something that I'm working on at the moment, because it limits the amount of data you can send back and forth. So the way you do this is you make the server intelligent, you make it know where a player is in the game and what players are around them, and you decide what updates to send them. So you only send updates for players they can actually see in the game. There's no point sending them updates for players that are outside of their viewport. It's just stupid. It just wastes bandwidth, it wastes data. So this is something that isn't in the game at the moment, but it's something that I'm looking into because it's a common way of sort of saving resources in multiplayer games. Other performance issues, there's a couple with HTML5 Canvas for the graphics. It's limited at the moment because it's not hardware accelerated. It uses the CPU at the moment with the browser process, so it's quite intensive when you're doing quite a lot of animation and stuff like that. If you're doing stuff every 30 milliseconds, you've got loads of people moving around, your fan starts whirring, you get up to 100% CPU usage. It's ridiculous. But fortunately, hardware acceleration is coming. So it's going to push stuff onto the graphics card, and it's really going to help with the Canvas side of stuff. In an overall sense, Canvas is really not my issue in the game. It's the WebSockets and making that communication between the server and the player much better. But the most annoying issue, really, is cheating. Now, as Christian said, like if you open up the source to your games, which you do in open web technologies, people can see how your game works, and they can see also how to get around your security, how to give themselves unlimited lives, how to give themselves rapid fire, how to make themselves invincible, how to make themselves about 100 times the speed limit of any other player in the game, which is really, really annoying. So, but because of this, it allows you to find out things about the game that you would never have found on your own. The fact that other people can look at your code and find the holes in your code and tell you how to fix them is amazing. And it's already, the cheaters are actually not that bad. They're quite nice people. They've really helped me sort of fix the holes in the game, and these are going to be rolled out soon. And it's given me an insight into better security practices for open web technologies. I might not be able to completely hide my code. I don't want to, but I also want to make it playable for other people. So you need to do things like you could maybe move computational stuff to the server instead of on the client side, so they can't actually edit their own position. You can use JavaScript closures. You can do whatever you want. There's loads of ways around it, but people will generally find a way to hack into your game. But it's something to be aware of in particular. So in closing, HTML5, JavaScript, WebSockets, all of that stuff is really inspiring for me, and I've really enjoyed sort of the development of Rawkets up to this point, and I'm really looking forward to developing it further. And I think these technologies really have a sort of a big future on the web. And that's really it. I'm going to put these slides up on my blog, so if you want to see them, if you want to know more about it, just sort of get in touch with me, and I'm happy to tell you about it. And thank you very much, and let me know if you've got any questions.
Do you not feel you're kind of doing what people have already done, but in more closed circles? So you say a lot of the problems that you're encountering are with server-based things and the cheating. Yeah. Essentially, what you're doing is like learning what like Treyarch have done with had to do with Call of Duty Black Ops. All of a sudden, you're essentially learning the netcode. So you not feel then, therefore, you're essentially you could learn things from the big corporate elements and then instead relay it into these open source tools.
It's basically just I came into this not knowing anything about network communication. I just wanted to learn how to use WebSockets. So definitely it's stuff that's already been solved before, but it's not stuff that is built into any of this stuff. So you really have to either know it or find out about it. But it would definitely help to sort of be told the solutions to these problems before. It would save you a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, it is ground that people have already tread. But that's the same with most stuff. I mean, the web technologies we're using are the stuff we're doing with them have been done already with closed systems and stuff like that. But the fact that it's open and on the web and using no plugins and using all these new technologies, it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Have you looked at porting any of the netcode from open engines like Quake or Quake 2 that have a lot of this stuff built into them and looking at the algos they're using?
What, looking into it and then putting it?
Yeah, because they're open source and looking at the way they're implementing some of these problems.
I've not actually thought about that, but it would make sense. I mean, I've looked into. What game did you say? You said.
Well, the Quake ones, just because they were completely open source.
Yeah, is that the one that Google did with the WebGL?
They may have done a web version
yeah.
of it, I'm not sure.
I did look into. There's a game called WPilot, which is a HTML5 and WebSockets space sort of multiplayer game. I looked into, because it's open source, I looked into the way they do sort of multiplayer communication, and that sort of opened my eyes to some of these issues. So it definitely helps to look at the way other people have already done this and pull it back in. I mean, that's the beauty of it all being open source, I suppose. Anyone else? Yep.
Hi there. How do you get around the issues with latency? So obviously you might fire a bullet at someone, but the information you're getting is a bit old, so it might look to you like you've killed them, but yeah. You haven't. So what have you put in place to sort that out?
At the moment, that is the problem with the game, is the latency. But the issues I've looked into to sort of get around that are, one way you can do it is you can put all the logic onto the server, so whatever the server says is true, and whatever the client says is sort of, it could be a lie. So what you do is you check up with the server every so often, so at least you know that every player is getting the same data back, but it could still be tripped up by sort of people who are behind on data packets and stuff like that. So some ways of doing it is to, at least to mask the effect of latency. You can't really get rid of the latency because someone could have a really crap internet connection, but you could, one way of looking at it is to have your physics engine running on the client side, just in the visual sense, so when they fire a bullet, at least it flows nice and straight, and every so often you check the position and update it, just in case it's off. And then on the server you're actually doing the real core stuff that says, right, if that bullet hits someone, I update everyone and say you're dead. So that's the way I'm looking at it at the moment. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, and if anyone knows that, I'd love you to tell me.
Yeah, well, I'm the Flash guy that you're meant to hug, and I've done this before, so
yeah?
Maybe let's talk after.
Yeah, definitely, that'd be really good, thank you.
You don't have to hug me though, it's fine.
Cool. Right, thank you very much.